Now we got 5, 15, 17 on this morning, and it is 10 o'clock. And so I'm going to make sure the recording is on. It is. And I'm going to let you know that this is coffee hour number 39 in the series, which we started last March, April. Sponsored by Lancaster area woodturners, but open to all. Those of you who have been enjoying this regularly, we would enjoy having you become members of Lancaster area woodturners, as many of you have already done, but it's not required. And so this is coffee hour number 39, and we're going to start with Barry, who's got a follow up from last week. Barry, Doug, take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Last week, there was a short discussion about different kinds of ink and durability. And I believe Ernie had mentioned the product that is made by Sakura, the Micron product, and its strength was that it was archival quality ink. And it got me to, I had never used the Sakura at that point, but I had used the Kai. Is it pronounced Staedtler or Staedtler, or how do you pronounce? It's a German company. How do you pronounce
Staedtler.
that?
Staedtler.
Okay, I probably can't duplicate your pronunciation, but they've been making drafting supplies and equipment for years. I used to use it 50 years ago. Anyhow, I have been using their pens, and after frustration with Sharpies, and then I went out and bought a Sakura, and both the Sakura and the Staedtler
Yes.
are available in everything from, I guess, about 0.15 millimeters all the way up to about 5 millimeters. So they're really made for artists, and there's a broad selection. The first test I did was using Sharpie as the unacceptably low limit, if you will, to look at. This is on raw Baltic birch plywood, which is, I admit, one of the worst materials as a veneer for absorbing, over-absorbing the ink. And you can see the comparison here. The characters, the words are all about,
I get my headphones because Heather's
they're
early.
all about 0.2 of an inch tall. And I just drew circles looking how far down you could draw before you kind of blotted out and made it illegible. And so from that test, the Sakura and the Staedtler performed about the same, and they are both priced about the same. If you buy them in an art store, they run about $3.50. You can buy them, but you have to buy about 5 in a pack on Amazon, then they're about $2 a piece. And I want to say, before we see their durability test, the Sakura and the Staedtler, unlike the Sharpie, they are not a felt tip. It feels like a very thick, relatively speaking, almost like monofilament that has been bored through its center. And so the ink flows down the center rather than out through fibers like the Sharpie has. And that stiffness poses one small problem, and that is, if you get the finer pens in particular, it can translate into chatter. As your tip goes across the grain of the wood, kind of like wood burning, it causes a small amount of chatter. And so you have to be aware of that, and the grain direction might want to advise you on how to orient your signature or whatever it is you're writing on your project. Any questions about clarity? Okay, if you go on to the next picture. Here this is again, it's Baltic birch plywood, but it's been coated with 3 coats of lacquer. And I chose lacquer, even though it's not a favored finish for woodworkers, just because I wanted to test lacquer over top of the ink. And I knew it would attack anything under it if it wasn't also lacquer under it. And so that's why it's on lacquer. On the top row, we see the three different versions. By uncoated, I mean that's just as they were applied on top of the lacquer. And if you zoom in on those, I don't think you can on your computer there, Doug. I don't know, but
And we have the picture quite big right now. Yeah.
okay, great. That's super. You can see the Sakura and Staedtler. That over on the right-hand side of the Staedtler is a chatter that I mentioned. Even though it's pretty smooth, they had a little bit of that in the corner. But the Sakura and the Staedtler are about the same. The Sharpie's absorption isn't as bad over the coating, but it's still kind of splotchy. And we come on down, and the next one is just taking a beeswax mineral oil paste and swiping it maybe 2 or 3 times across the images. This would kind of simulate if you were going to use like a Beal system or something after your signature, how they would hold up. This is purely durability. Sharpie held up well under wax. The Sakura had quite a bit of wipe away. The Staedtler was pretty undamaged. I was happy with that just because I started using the Beal system and I wanted to take advantage of that. Okay, the next row down is when lacquer. I have an artist brush that's about a 1/2 inch wide and very fine hair, and I just dipped it in brushing lacquer that had been thinned down so it would flow. And of course, the Sharpie, it responded terribly and just obliterated the whole thing. The Sakura and the Staedtler both had quite a bit of erosion, or whatever you want to call it. It's hard to say which one did better. You have to replicate that test yourself if you wanted to check it out.
Doug, back out a bit so we can see the legends at the left-hand side. Thank you.
Okay, then the next one down was water locks, which I think is a pretty popular, from what I've heard people finishing stuff in. I use it on and off myself, and so I had some here. And this is again the same 3 pins with again, I used an artist brush, and I placed a drop of water locks in the center of each image, and then stroked the brush across it 3 or 4 times. And I think the Staedtler held up about the best of the 3. And by the way, the Staedtler also, I don't know what the Sakura, but the Staedtler also on its packaging says 12-hour open time. And open time is a big killer on these pens if you forget to cap it. And even when it's capped, eventually air exposure is what kills them. There's still ink inside and it just can't get out. And so I appreciated that Staedtler has a 12-hour open time. The downside of that is after application, up to about 5 or 10 seconds after you put it down, if your hand drags across it, and believe me, being a left-hander, this is the common problem. If your hand drags across it or you wipe it with a rag or something, it will smear for a longer period of time than the Sakura will. But I did like the fact that it has a long open time, because that tells me the pen might last longer and not give up just by drying out inside.
What's your conclusion, Barry? I want to move this along a bit if we can. What's your conclusion?
I'm sorry?
What is your conclusion? I'd like to move this along. What do you recommend we do?
Oh, well, we get down to and I do use shellac quite a bit, homemade shellac. I mean, it's a flake made into about 1 pound or a 1/2 pound density, if you will. And if we go down to over in my end, my image, my personal picture is blocking the bottom right-hand corner. But honestly, I think the Staedtler, that white image you see on there, that was light reflecting. That was not, if you see the piece of wood.
So you're liking the Staedtler best of all?
I recommend the Staedtler I do not know how they'll perform over, Ernie's point was, will it fade over the years? I don't know about that. I think if you coat them afterward, you're probably going to insure against fade. At least you shouldn't hear feedback in your lifetime. Put it that way.
Okay.
Barry, no matter what you put over them, they'll fade. Like I say, I have a table that I wrote an epistle on the bottom of on my 40th birthday, and I put something over it, and you can't find it 35 years later. So, but the Sakura I've always picked because they do guarantee light fast or archival. I think the Staedtler does too. I've used both. They're both very good.
Okay.
Well, they do both state archival ink. And the Staedtler calls itself a pigment outliner. And I'm not really sure how to take that word outliner, how that is really meant. But I thought it would produce, just by its name, produce a crisp edge, is why I started using it about a year ago. And they are carried, both pens are carried in the Hobby Lobby and
Okay, we got that. I see Kai was raising his hand. I'm going to turn to Kai next anyway, but let's finish this discussion. Kai, you got a point you wanted to make here? Kai? He's gone.
No, he's on mute.
Yeah. Okay. Now I use the Staedtler as well, and it says light fast on the pen, so that that should be okay. It shouldn't fade. The only problem with these is if you have alcohol in the finish that you put over the Staedtler writing, the alcohol will attack the ink. So there you have to be careful.
That would be shellac.
Yeah.
Anybody else on this topic before I just go to Kai, since I have him spotlighted anyway?
Yeah, I just make a quick comment. For what it's worth, back in the day, 1960, I started in drafting, and we used to ink our drawings. And Staedtler was very popular at that time. Even they've been around for a long time. I'm not familiar with the Sakura at all.
By the way, Kai, in response to your comment, I did, knowing that my shellac is probably 70% alcohol, well, more than that, I guess. I did put a drop of straight alcohol, like, wood alcohol that you get from Home Depot. Put a drop of it right in the middle when I first tried this stuff, and it had no effect on it at all. I did not rub it. I just dropped it on there and looked at blotting. And the Sakura had some blotting from it, but the Staedtler, they may make different qualities. I don't know.
Okay.
Mine is just called Staedtler pigment outliner.
I think this is a good experiment, and I think everybody's going to have to find their own way through it. And I'm going to move the topic along. I'm going to give the screen to Kai for your. Kai's got some slideshow on color and texture, which some of the clubs have been dealing with, and I'm going to hold you to 15 minutes as well because I got a video I need to show that you guys are going to like. So,
okay.
Spotlight on Kai.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Right. So the PowerPoint should be visible for everybody. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yep.
We're going to hold you to 15, so go for it.
I did that for a German club meeting, and I just translated the headlines into English. So it's about brushing, wire brushing, dyeing, liming, and signing of a bowl. So first of all, I turned the outside of the bowl to its finished shape, and then I sanded it. As you get, or as I get when I turn kind of tiny ribbles or uneven places in the surface, I think sanding is a good idea, even if you want to wire brush it later. So you get a nice curve then. And so I sanded up to 180 grit. Yeah, then I wire brushed it, and before doing that, I had watched a remote demo by John Jordan that the American Association of Woodturners offered. Did any one of you watch that that remote demo? No? Okay, and he showed wire brushing, so I tried his technique. Just start that.
Wow.
What is the point of the wire brushing?
Sorry, just a moment. Okay, there was a question.
Yes, I was asking, why do you do that?
To texture the surface of the bowl. You'll see the result in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
The interesting thing I found with John Jordan's technique is that he doesn't use a wire brush rotating an electric drill, for example, but he just holds the wire brush to the workpiece. So I wanted to try that out. And that's the,
You
okay.
would not do that without heavy leather gloves.
Yeah, that's why I I had them. Right. So another bit of video. I used some abrasive pad to kind of smooth the surface a little bit because you get torn out fibers after wire brushing. So that was that step, and now the next one is the result that you get. So you get a slightly textured surface, and I didn't move the wire brush across, but I held it in one position, then moved a little bit towards the left, and then held it to the workpiece again. And if you do that several times, the wire will even find grooves that have already been left, so and will go back in there, and you can deepen them. But of course, you see in some places the fibers are a bit.
What is this, ash? Is this
That's
ash?
ash, yes. That's right. Okay. Then the next thing I did, I put some spirit stain on it from, well, made by a British company, Staedtler. And yeah, here you can see the stained piece. And this looked a bit kind of aggressive to me, the green, or it was too green for me. I didn't like the effect there. So I finished the inside after that and did the rim. And okay, and that was quite difficult because the spirit stain is very thin and it will go everywhere. So I put masking tape around the inside and masking tape around the outside, but still some of the stain got into places where it shouldn't have got, like here, for example, and here you can see it as well. It doesn't show that much, but it shows. The other question is whether you should tolerate something like that or whether you should say, okay, that's a fault that shouldn't happen. By chance, I found a photo that someone took when I attended a meeting and Richard Draffen demonstrated. And here's one of his bowls here, or hollow forms, and you can see that there's some runoff towards the middle as well, where he used this dye. So maybe it's okay, even if even the professionals have kind of things like that. Why shouldn't I? So I left it as it is, and then I decided, okay, to do something about this aggressive green color, and I used liming wax on top, another chestnut product, and that was the result then with the liming wax on top. And here you can see the difference. That's liming wax, and here the bottom or the foot hasn't been limed yet. Okay, then as a surface on top of the liming wax, I used microcrystalline wax just to protect the liming wax a little bit, and because I had it in the workshop anyway. Yeah, and then the bowl was finished, and I wanted to engrave my logo on the foot of the bowl, and I have that little laser that I have already shown in another meeting or morning coffee hour. And the problem is that you cannot place it over a bowl. So I decided to use my my drill press as a stand for it. So I kind of fixed this wood here to the table with two clamps, and then I screwed a little board under it and fixed two aluminum angle irons to it, so that I can place the laser into the angle iron, and then I can wind the table up and down, and my laser can be put into the right position. There's a photo from the other side. Maybe that makes it clear. So that's the angle iron, and the laser is in there, and with the crank of the table, I can move it up and down to get it into the right position for burning. And then I burned my logo into the foot of the bowl. Yeah, and then I cleaned out any wax that was kind of melted by the laser, and that's kind of the result that you get. So it's ash, as John said. So I just have my logo and the wood type on the bottom. Okay, and that's the finished bowl. And another view of the bowl. And it's funny, the color looks quite different. So it depends on the light when you take the photo, how it actually looks. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening.
Very nice.
Can you see that color difference that you saw in your photo? Does that show up when the bowl is sitting on the table, or is it less, just more obvious with the picture?
I had it on my workbench in the workshop, and I had some black cardboard in the background. So it was sitting on the table or on the workbench in both photos, but I had different lights switched on in the workshop, so that makes the difference, I guess.
Did you try the wire brushing on anything besides the ash?
No, I haven't. It's the only piece where I tried it. Sorry, my phone is ringing. I just switch off the. I hope somebody else is going to take the phone. Just tolerate it for a minute. Any more questions you want to ask? Oh.
Hi.
Yes.
I've done something along the same line. I followed Jimmy Clues. He has some videos on YouTube, and he uses a torch, and again with ash, burning the softer grain out, and then sanding it, and there with your softer grain, then you can put the pigment into the grain. And he uses a like an artist's oil paint, and puts it in the grain, sands it all back down, and then you have nothing but that darker color in the grain, and then you can put another light color over the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another possibility, which I haven't tried out yet, but
it gets some interesting results.
Yeah, I think I will. Yeah.
Liming wax. Fill me in on a quick description. I'm not sure. I've never used it.
It's just wax that is colored white. So it's white wax that you put onto the wood. So it's actually waxing the surface with a white wax. And if you have grooves like the ones I got because of the wire brushing, then the wax, of course, will kind of fill the grooves and you get that effect.
So is there lime in it or what? Where does the word liming come from?
No, there is another way to do liming, a way to do proper liming using lime, but that gives a similar effect, the liming wax, but it's far easier to apply in wood turning. And of course, some companies have found a way to make some extra money by selling this liming wax to us wood turners. So yeah, it's an effect that looks like liming, but it has no lime in it. It's just white wax.
It doesn't have any limes or lemons in it either. It's lime and an agricultural lime, gypsum, I guess. I don't know what it is.
It's sometimes called a pickled finish, and it's also called a French provincial finish. They do whole rooms and suites of furniture in it.
Okay.
But it does come from an original lime coating, like a whitewash, isn't it?
Originally.
Yes.
Yeah, because it gives a similar effect, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else on that?
Bob is lifting his hand, but the mic is still switched off.
Yeah, you're gonna unmute Bob, and I'm gonna spotlight you.
There we go. I'm sorry. When you have that bleeding between the two colors, have you tried using, when you take a wire and press it against the wood, it puts the burn mark in there? Would that keep it from bleeding one to another? I know you'd add a different color in there with the black burn, but it'd be one way possibly to keep you from bleeding the colors one to the other side.
Yeah, I think that could have worked. I used it when I do spinning tops. I often do little burn rings onto the spinning tops, and then I use a felt tip pen to color the area between the rings that I get, and the burn rings keep the color from running into each other or from bleeding into each other. So that works. Yes. Yeah. Good tip. Yeah.
Anybody else? Ray.
Hey, one thing that we have, I don't know if Kai has it. If you haven't tried for here in the States, frog tape. And painters use that. It's a step up from the blue painter's tape. Mm-hmm. That seals when it gets any moisture on it. And that's been used. Sometimes it makes a real nice line. Color to color.
That's the green tape you're talking about.
The green tape, right.
And it's called frog tape, you said?
That's
frog tape.
The brand is frog tape. It's like blue painter's tape, except it's green and it makes a tighter line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The problem with my wire brushing is a little bit that the grain is torn. And in these places, if you put masking tape on top of the wood, there is still kind of a tiny little gap where the stain can get in, because it's not a flat surface, but it's a little bit kind of a rough surface. And so I think the stain managed to get under the masking tape in some places. Maybe I could have sealed one surface first and then done the second staining at the rim of the bowl. That's
what you might think about is run a little bit of a groove through there with a burning tool of some type, and the burn end might stop the dye from moving through.
Hey, yeah. John, Ray's still spotlighted. We're not seeing the other guy.
Okay, let me see what I got to do.
Kai, the inside of your bowl did not appear to be finished at the point where you put the stain on the outside. I wonder if you, or when you stained the rim with that orange, it looked like, had you tried, if you pre-finish, only with the sacrificial finish, if you pre-finish the inside?
Yeah, no, it wasn't finished, you're right, because I thought if there's any bleeding, I could try to sand it away when I don't finish the inside from the start. But maybe it's a better idea to finish the inside first and then stop the bleeding in the first place before it gets onto the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to move us to the next topic because I have something. I have you guys, those of you who attended the Lancaster meeting the other night for Doug's video will recognize this. Let me see. I need to share my screen. Oops. And then I need to play this video.
I get nervous with this stuff. Sometimes you just have to stand back and take a deep breath just to calm your nerves, realize you're nervous. The likelihood of this blowing off now is almost zero because the way that is set into the tool, the rest is set in there. Where can it go? I mean, if you have a catch, the worst that can happen is it may come off a few degrees. But a catch is never a nice thing to have, and a piece coming loose is never a nice thing to have. So it's always a sort of a tension. And if you ever lose that tension, stop turning. Because to me, that's your safety thing going off. So we had a catch. And I want to start off by saying that before that catch happened, I was feeling nervous and somewhat tense. My gut feeling was saying there was something wrong, and I didn't pay attention to it. So this catch is all my fault. It's not got nothing to do with the tools. I mean, the tools is everything, but it's all on me as to how that whole thing is set up. Well, so what I want to do is just show how this happened. You can see that this is the edge of the rest. Because the tool is quite wide, I had the edge over here. But if you take a look, the actual, when the cutting edge is in contact with the outside, the actual tool is over the center line. So the majority of the tool. So when that caught, it came up and did that on me. The reason is that is the wrong tool for the job when you really think about it.
Okay, so what's the right tool for the job? We know what Doug did. He went to a hollowing tool that had a bend in it. What do you guys do? Ray.
Here it is. Glenn Lucas went to these.
Bring it closer to the side of your head. You got it. Yeah, there. Now we can see it. Thank you.
It's heavy, but it's got a negative rake.
And you,
Ray, I agree with the negative rake. My problem is that with that width of the tool, when you're down deep inside the bowl, you reduce the chance of it catching, but you're still over the center line. And one of the things I had a problem with is that you're holding the tool, the way that the tool is still at a side angle.
Hey, Doug.
Yeah.
What about a Forstner bit?
Well, I'd done as much Forstner bitting as I could, and I was putting a taper on the inside. So that had all been drilled out with the Forstner bit to start with. And I was just doing the final taper. So, but back to Ray's thing with the negative scraper. Do you say the negative rake is just a little bit less grabby?
You can run the tool flatter. That's Stuart Batty was a real advocate for that when he did the real tall, real small goblets, that you go in with a flat tool and it reduces that self feed when a scraper touches itself feeds into the side, and that you survive. It's not, maybe not be the ultimate answer, but the survival rate's a little bit higher.
Doug, you want to show us the tool you used?
Yeah.
Ray, I have a question. When you're using that scraper, are you using a conventional tool rest or a platform rest like Doug had?
Yeah, regular tool, or just use a regular tool rest.
Yeah, I think that's right. If you're in on that, then you can control the torque on the thing a little better, flat on the rest.
The platform rest is problematic. It works well in some situations and it's a problem in others.
Correct.
Problem, the vessel was 5 inches deep and it's only 3 inches in diameter. And one of the reasons for looking at that, again, I got this big scraper here. It's here, and I'm eventually going to try and cut it back to the way that my objective was to bring it back to the way that Ray has, more of a swept back shape. The problem I've got was when you're down deep inside the bowl like that, you know, the whole thing is doing this. And so that's why I went with for that really deep turning, why I used John's platform. And what I ended up using was my hollow form. Again, because of the whole rotation, when you do get a catch on something like this, it's because of the tool is on the center line, the tip is on the center line, the catch is almost like, it's just a tiny little rotation of the tool. And, you know, when you're doing this in hollow forming, obviously, if you're, you know, that's what the neck is for here. But the other part was that this is more, this is cutting into the side more as a scraper. And so even when you have a catch, it's just a little tip catch on the end.
But on the other hand, with that tool, aren't you in danger of pushing the whole tool through the wall?
Well, absolutely. But that's what you're in danger of all the time when you're wood turning, isn't it?
Hey, Doug, why didn't you have the platform support closer to the wall of your vessel?
That's a very good question.
From the first time I looked at it, I go, why are you so far away?
There was a pin on the end of that platform that we removed. But what was happening was that I'm not sure why the pin had been put there, but we actually removed the pin for that reason, because I couldn't get it any closer and get it into the bottom. So I was right down at the bottom of the vessel. I'm just trying to find this other tool that I had that John is referring to.
Well, you wouldn't have had the catch if it was closer, but then you couldn't have tilted the tool to get a cutting edge either.
Yeah.
See, the problem here is that on a vessel that small and in a bowl, we generally raise the tool rest, put the scraper above center. And because your tool is here and not on the center line, you're getting a dragging cut, no matter what the attitude of that scraper is. But when you get into a small vessel, you have to be on the center line, especially if it's deep. And there's two problems there. One is you can't physically hold that at much extension off the rest on that center line. So the solution is the negative rake scraper, because by putting a negative rake on that, you can put it on the center line, but you still have a dragging cut. I've got somebody at the door. I gotta run and see who.
Yeah. The other scraper I have is this one here.
I got you.
I don't know if you can see it behind.
We can see it.
That one, which is got an angle on the side, and what I use is on the final cut. Even though this scraper is for the side scraper, I use a push cut and just use the end going down the side, so I was actually pushing in, and that way I was just doing an end cut as opposed to a side cut on the.
I would like that scraper a whole lot better without the sharp corners.
Yeah, well, John's recommendation was and this is where the other one is, one like this one here.
Yeah.
Where you're doing it without the sharp corners, a rounded one. And again, the only reason for doing one versus the other is the one gives me a straighter sidewall, you know. But I agree with John. This one here is also a good option because this action is also reducing and Ray, this would probably work even better if you had as a scrape. If you put this reverse grind on the top there,
Negative rake.
but it also reduces the area of contact area, which makes it, I think, a little bit safer.
Kai's got something he wants to say on this. Kai?
Yeah, I've got a similar tool. Can you see that? Or is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The only difference is that my angle is not as steep as the one in Doug's tool, and it has got kind of the side is angled and the front is angled the same way. And then if you go into a deep hollow or a deeper hollow form, you just have to make sure that only a little bit of the tool at the tip touches the side of the form and not the whole length, because if you have too much contact here, it will cause, or if you have too much contact here, it will cause a catch. And then I've got another one. I think that's the shape Doug talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've got a little video, 2 minutes, how I use it. If you want, I could show that if there's time.
Let's see if anybody has comment first, and then I'm back to gallery. I think I've removed all the spotlights. Everybody see everybody? Yeah. Okay. Anybody else on this before we give Kai a little video on what he's got? Looks like they're all jonesing to see your video, Kai.
Okay. Then let me show it. Und im Einsatz eines Ja, okay. Okay, eine ganz kurze Demo zur Twin-Kamera. Yeah. I bought myself a second camcorder for Christmas. Und im Einsatz eines Schabstabs oder Schabers. Und im Vergleich dazu nochmal eine Röhre, die jetzt auf der Seitenflanke schneidet. So, ich mache mal Markierung hier hin. Diesen Bereich lassen wir mal mit der Röhre geschnitten. Und hier gehe ich jetzt noch mit dem Schaber drüber und höre an den Bleistiftstrich auf. Halte die Drechselbank an und jetzt kann man sich hier im kleinen Bild mal den Unterschied angucken in der Oberfläche. Hier ist es etwas rauer, das war mit dem Schaber, hat man aber auch ruckzuck weggeschliffen. Das liegt nur an dem ganz weichen Holz, dass das hier so offensichtlich ist. Und die geschnittene Oberfläche ist die glattere Oberfläche. Ja, gut, das war's.
Okay, Kai, explain that.
Yeah. Okay. What I wanted to try out with this video was using two camcorders at the same time, and it's possible with a Wi-Fi function to film with one camcorder a close-up and then put this picture into the main camcorder. So that's why there were two pictures on the screen. So first I did scraping, then I did cutting with a gouge, and then I made that line on this wooden disc, and I scraped from the outside towards the line, and then you could see the two surfaces, the one that is or was scraped and the other one that was cut. And of course the cut surface is better, but it's very soft wood, and if you do that in harder wood, like say cherry or something like that, even with a scraper you get a very nice surface. You just have to make sure that only a tiny bit of the scraper is in contact, or a point of the scraper is in contact with the wood, and not too much of the surface. So you can, of the cutting edge of the scraper. So you can use it for platters, for example. And if you hold the handle of the scraper to your body, and you can just let your body fall towards forward, or kind of draw it backward, and you can keep your arms in a fixed position holding the handle, if the handle is long enough. And so you get a very smooth surface and a good line. And being rounded at the top, the scraper can also be used inside bowls. So you can use that to do scrape on the inside of the bowl, at least in the area of the bottom.
Could I just interrupt for a second? One of the things that your demonstration showed, though, and if I take my thing here, is when you were cutting, the angle of your tool was quite far away, like it was like 25 or 30 degrees off the tool rest, okay, which is higher than I could be, and the actual position of the cut was still in this region in here of the tool. It wasn't at the end. We point out that, you know, so in that hollow form that I was making, the cutting position, if anything, there's another thing you just showed me here, and that is that cutting position would have been almost right at the corner here of the tool. So the fact is, I was potentially cutting on with part of the tool that wasn't even sharpened back correctly for that process, you know, because I was away from the edge. So thank you for the video, but it just highlighted yet another thing as far as where you think you're cutting and where you're actually cutting, maybe two different points when you're doing it hidden like that.
Well, I'm with Ray on that question. I'm with Ray. I would be going to the negative rake scraper, I think, finally, to sort this out.
Yeah.
The negative rake scraper will pretty well solve your problems, because you can stay on the center line. And the other thing is, as Kai explained here, is that you can only use a small part of that scraper as you start to close in and get more and more scraper involved. It becomes uncontrollable.
Well,
and that's why dragging it is better too.
When you stepped away, Ernie, John recommended this shape for the scraper as well, which has got a much smaller cutting surface for the inside.
Yep, that would be the perfect one. It would be what I'd pick.
I might even put a negative rake on that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a negative rake doesn't have to be gigantic like in the purchase tools. It can be just 1 or 2 millimeters around the edge that you grind negative.
And then you grind from the bottom up, the bottom side, which leaves a burr on that negative rake. You don't grind the top side, you grind the bottom side.
And of course, another solution is a turner's gate, which will hold that tool on the center line all throughout the cut and at whatever attitude you want it to be.
Ernie, I think this is what you're describing as a negative rake. I have this on my scraper. It's just a very slight around the top, so it doesn't have to be that all the way back. Like
there, get onto the camera. Yep.
Yep. It doesn't have to be
all the way.
I would have more of an angle though, Doug. That's a very shallow negative rake on that one.
Yeah, and you could, John. I was just pointing out that it doesn't have to be all the way through the middle or whatever. You know, I found that this does improve.
Now, somebody had a question that got stifled here. Alan Miller.
I did. Question for Kai or Doug or whoever. When you're holding that scraper, are you horizontal to the floor? Are you trying to match up the center line of your bowl or your turning? how do you position that?
When I was holding the scraper, it was like this. It was right flat across the tool, okay?
Just a second. Hang on, Doug. I'm going to spotlight you too. I'm trying to keep up with everybody on the spotlight. Here you go.
Sorry.
Go with it.
This is my tool rest. So when I'm in the inside, that's how the tool is going into the thing. What people are talking about and what happens with a scraper is they say that you should have it as a slight tilt when you're inside a bowl or something to do that. So what you do by using a negative rake is you put the tilt on the tool instead of on the tool,
Gotcha.
The person requiring to do the tool turning.
Yeah.
So that when you're down inside, you can be flat and keep that flat for the best support.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Just a little comment to this. If you want to have a nice surface, you need the burr at the end of the or for cutting.
Yes.
And I feel I have to lift the handle a little bit to get this burr into a good cutting position to get a nice surface. But still, it should be on center or a little bit below center, never above center. And sometimes you have to play around a little bit, tilt the handle a little bit or lift the handle a little bit till you get your burr cutting in the right position. And then you get a nice shaving and a nice surface.
And to Kai, that's the point of putting a negative rake on that scraper, so that you don't have to lift the handle as much.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but still, you need the burr with a negative rake.
Absolutely, you have to.
Have a nice surface.
You still have to have the burr there, and that's why you finish the bottom surface when you're cutting, when you're grinding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Well, in metal turning, we get more precise about this. We have three things in a metal cutting tool. We have clearance, which you see in router bits. The surface is sloped behind the edge so that it won't rub. And you have top rake and you have side rake. So for instance, if you machine brass, you have to put 5 degrees of negative rake in the tool, even though you cut on the center line, or it'll just rip the piece out of the chuck. But it machines beautifully with 5 degrees of negative rake.
Yeah.
Top rake.
I'd like to just make one final comment, and that is about gut feel.
Just a second. I want to spotlight you again. I'm trying to get everybody there. We got you.
I just wanted to comment about gut feel and wood turning, because we've all been very comfortable, and I don't know that I've ever had, when I'm doing a skew or something like that, I'm always a little bit on edge because this thing is just ready to go with a catch. And this is one of those times when I was like, well, I can do this or whatever. But my gut feel was really ringing a lot of bells. It's very rare that I stand back from a piece and do that much. So, when I had a mentor that said, if your gut feel, if everything looks right and your gut feel says it's wrong, follow your gut, because your gut is telling you something you have missed. And so that's what happens.
Called intuition. You gotta train it seriously. You trust your intuition. Don't follow your head.
That's very hard to do. We all get in our head and we say, well, I can do this, and bam, it blows up every time. Funniest thing, it's always the last cut that blows up, isn't it?
And that's when the tension gets tougher too. As the further along you go, the less you want to screw up.
Yeah. Has anybody else made those coffee mugs that Doug was making a skin for a steel coffee mug insert? Has anybody else made those? And are there other approaches to it? It seemed to me you could do almost the whole thing with Forstner bits if you had big enough Forstner bits.
Yes, John, Mark, and Judy, and Lowell and I have all worked with a group of people that are drug or alcohol dependent, and they had 10 of these mugs. Somebody had given them the kits, so we went ahead and roughed the mugs. They're pre-made the forms, and then I bored them out here in my shop, but I bored them with a boring bar on a machinist lathe, and that worked real well. It held a nice tight angle, and of course, with the machinist lathe, you were using a tool similar to what Doug was talking about there with his hollowing tool. So, and you don't have much contact, and it was made a nice even cut all the way down. I did pre-bore it, of course, with the Forstner bits.
Now, Gerald, when you do that,
Yes.
are you trying to have the wood skin fit the mug, or are you trying to have an airspace? And then where does the mug actually contact the wood?
Good question. I don't recall whether I left much of an airspace or not. I don't believe I did.
It seems to me that you could have it grabbed at the top rim and at the bottom little dewey and be not touching the wood anywhere else. And then if you're going to do that, then you can bore it bigger and you don't have to worry about it. It's just going to be bigger.
I didn't even think about the airspace, but yes, that's true.
The only, and I agree with John, the only issue is that the top rim is only an 1/8 of an inch thick. And so if you bore that the entire way down for the same diameter, it makes it rather difficult.
No, I wouldn't do that. I would bore down till the cup changes shape, and then I would bore with a smaller bit, and then the final bit, the third bit, finally would be the full depth at the bottom.
I agree with you. I agree with you, John. So you have 3 bores or something like that.
I had the boring bar set up on a tapering fixture, and so I was able to tape them all the way down through.
Yeah, I don't have a boring bar and I don't have those big Forstner bits, but I think I'm going to try and do this anyhow and figure out a way to do it. It was quite an interesting exercise. Doug actually made 2 of those, and we videoed it twice. And then what you saw the other night was the second time through, 3 hours, cut down to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So you have a taper attachment on your machinist lathe?
Yes.
Yeah, that takes all the guesswork out of it.
All fun, right?
Ray's going to get the last word.
Hey, John, watching Kai cut that, one of the things, and I say this out, that if you're not comfortable doing it, don't do it. But if you put a burr on that scraper and roll that up to 45-degree angle, you can actually get the cut that you get off that gouge. But don't come in from the side, coming straight in, and just with a very, very delicate cut. But that's one of those things where you look at it and go, I'm not comfortable rolling the scraper up on the side, and don't do it. But it can be done. And,
Ray?
Outside, not inside a vessel, but the outside. Well, you can do it inside. You can do it also inside a bowl.
You'll turn the scraper on a bit of an edge inside, a bit of a roll up in there.
Ray, can I just clarify your 45-degree angle here with this question?
Yeah, just
you mean a 45-degree this way?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
And not this way.
Doug, hang on.
Right.
Show us again.
Right.
So Ray's, when he says 45-degree angle, he means turning it 45 degrees this way.
Right. With
You're using a scraper.
But you got to
not this way.
Yes.
You got to put a fresh burr on that, and it's a very, very delicate cut, and you'll do as good as the gouge.
Yeah, basically a shear cut with a scraper.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, I did that on the outside of bowls, but then not with a rounded scraper, but a straight edge.
Try that on the bottom, and you'll see it. You get the same as you do on the outside.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
come straight in.
I might also add that I'm a great fan of the Veritas burnishing jig, and I burnish all my big scrapers for bowl work. It isn't worth it for small form scrapers, but it puts a burr on, and I find that it overcomes the problem Kyle mentioned, is that the burr is at a better angle than the grinder gives.
Couldn't you do that with a hand burnisher?
You used to in Peter Child's day, but the problem is that the high-speed steel today is harder than most burnishers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they put a tungsten carbide burnishing cone in the Veritas scraper, and it does a very, very nice job.
There's a video of that out on the AOL with Dale Larson demonstrating that. It's quite a good video. It has me tempted to buy the Dingus, although I haven't done it yet.
And there are those that would argue with a carbide tip tool on the scraper would do an excellent job on this one with the little tiny carbide tips coming in on a 45-degree angle, pulling that, doing a pull cut down the inside of that thing would have done just a real sweet job.
I was thinking of that, Doug. Plus, they have negative carbide scrapers as well.
But you can't raise a burr on carbide.
You're exactly right. They have the angle, but not the burr.
Well, on that note, gentlemen, it's 11 o'clock. Thank you for a very interesting coffee hour today. We'll see you all next week. In the next follow-up, I'll be posting the info you need to join Lancaster area woodturners if you like. And thank you all for an interesting day today.
Thank you, John.
John, thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.